Let's get on with the big topic, which is the PlayStation the PlayStation showcase, which in summary is what you would expect from an E3 presentation. Like, it felt very much like that. Sony clearly was more interested in marketing this one. Usually they're like showcases or the Let's Play, or what do they call it? The State of Play. Like the last one they did, I think, was for Deathloop. It didn't get nearly the same fanfare, but on PlayStation 5 they had a huge PlayStation showcase. Come watch it. So it was their E3 presentation given in September. Lots to see here, and lots of. I think actually in a previous video we had said, during E3 it's really important that each company sort of gives a roadmap for their console, so that people who are purchasing it or people who are thinking about purchasing it have a future to look forward to, like a 1 to 3 year roadmap. And we'd gotten it from Microsoft to some degree, from Nintendo-ish. Like, they give a 1 year roadmap largely. And we said, like, this is something that's missing from Sony, and they really need to step it up. And they kind of silent for a good 2 months, but I think we finally got the real response. You can kind of tell this is their big thing, because they're giving it the same sort of pomp that they give the E3 presentations.
Showcasing.
I think in some of the videos we've seen in the past, they tend to just have a narrated voice that says some upcoming games,
right?
And then just 8 trailers, and then it plays out.
So without further ado, let's look at some new and amazing games.
And it really feels like that the thing that they're setting up for is like, we need to show what you can look forward to in PlayStation over the next year.
This was an interesting lead.
Yeah. Smart, I'd give.
Yeah.
I'll try not to ruin it for anybody who's actually trying to watch this.
Oh, along with us, yeah. Familiar sound and light.
They must be stopped.
And that face must be familiar to anybody a fan of KOTOR.
KOTOR. Yeah, BioWare is not attached to this.
BioWare, so I was looking into this, and it was BioWare. It was pre-EA purchase of BioWare, I believe, and Lucasfilm was the publisher on it. So Lucasfilm ultimately owns the rights to KOTOR. And it may actually be a PlayStation exclusive. It's unclear if it is, but during the last slide there, you see Asper's, PlayStation's, and Lucasfilm's, or LucasArts logos. So it may be some deal that PlayStation is funding the development of the remake. It's unclear because none of these trailers actually say what is exclusive and what's not. So it leaves a big question mark about how much these are, how many of these games are some sort of limited exclusivity, fully exclusive, or otherwise.
Yeah. This one. It's hard to say. I think they may be using clearly it's a cutscene, but they may be using in-game renders. Even here, it's possible.
I mean, a lot of games have moved towards in-game rendering because the hardware is powerful enough to actually give cinematic quality. You no longer need to do full-out renders from some third-party studio. Instead, you can actually do with a lot of in-game stuff. And honestly, this stuff is clearly level renders using the in-engine. So, it looks pretty good.
It does, yeah.
Graphics wise, I can't tell you much about the game, and I haven't played any of these. I'm not sure if it's actually continuation to the Eve series or if this is something entirely different. But yeah, there's some in-game rendering, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly this is some gameplay, right? The camera's following it, and there's like certain attacks.
I will say I'm not quite sure what's going on with the lighting here, but it looks like it's not entirely next gen lighting. But the effects work is in like particle systems are really nice.
The particle system, yeah. So that's something that I this is just me seeing certain games, but like the games that I see from the Korean marketplace, and this is a Korean game, do a really, really great job with their particles. They've like really nailed the effects. And this game is certainly no exception to that. You look at all the swipes and like everything going on around attacks, even just like all the little flame particles that are coming off of arms and body elements. The control of camera blur and depth of field at times is great.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of like pretty interesting systems. Like the hair system in this too looks pretty good in high fidelity. It leads me to believe that it's yeah, right. It leads me to believe that this is actually PlayStation or like next gen only game, because there's stuff in here that's unless they take a rendering pass that's going to compromise a lot of things for PS4 generation. And this looks like it's a PS5 exclusive or Xbox Series X, PS5 next gen only game.
Current gen, yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on. This isn't necessarily, I'm not sure this is a game that I would be personally like play, but it certainly looks very good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of game. The reason that I say that, let me clarify. There are a lot of games where the gameplay is I'm a dude with a sword who runs around and attacks things.
Yeah, I mean this is like in the vein of Bayonetta or Devil May Cry. And
God of War, even to an extent, right?
Yeah. Well, I think God of War tends not to be as frenetic as those games, and that sort of has the pacing of the former. This game
was a surprise for me.
I mean, it was announced a while ago, but very little was shown. I think it was E3. They had like a really short, whatever it was, a 20-second teaser. So this is the first time we're actually seeing full gameplay of it. And it's actually, I like the direction they took, which is the Borderlands, but fantasy setting.
Yeah, no, I'm here for this. Like, this is right up my alley. I enjoy it. I've only really played the first Borderlands, and I played it solo, so not the best way to play it, but I really enjoyed what I did play, and this is like mixing what I enjoyed from that game with an aesthetic that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I gotta say, the art direction on this is fantastic. Like the way the use of color here is, it's like I just want to just go and wander around in that world. It's almost evokes part of what made Halo 1 feel so cool to me.
Yeah,
like the bright greens and blues and purples in the levels.
This also feels like genuinely inspired, more so than maybe the last Borderlands did, where it's almost like they took the team and they're like, hey, okay, we're going to take this game that you know, but we're going to go wild and take it in a totally different direction. And it seems like the team might have been really jazzed by it because it seems as creative as the first Borderlands was.
Yeah.
Whereas like the second and third one, I got a bit more, not serious, but I think less inspired is maybe the right word.
Yeah, it felt like they were started to really focus down on the story and the minutia of the story, and less the kind of the world that you were in, which is great. There is a place for that. But this is like, in terms of just being a breath of fresh air, it's kind of that feels like to me.
I also say this is one of the only games so far that have gotten an actual release date. Most of the games I think we see in this are oddly devoid of it.
Release dateless.
Yeah.
When was the release date for that?
March 25th, 2022. So not far. I mean, it's still like 6 months away, but still.
Yeah. So
You have comments on this? I have to say that the shader system on the realism of some of this stuff looks good.
It's uncanny valley for me. It's hit it.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they're going for realism. But I'll say I dig the idea. It's like a labyrinth meets, I don't know. It's quite a lot of weird themes going on here. But for Square Enix, the Final Fantasy games with their kind of like really sprawling, convoluted stories. I kind of find this refreshing that they're just going with like a more simple Alice in Wonderland labyrinth sort of idea.
And for anyone who's played Ring Fit, a little bit of Ring Fit here with the inanimate object talking to.
But I feel like the cat at the beginning was like probably one of the most realistic in-game rendered cats. The hair system on that was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right?
The eyes were really nice.
Oh yeah, I'm talking to a cup. Did I just do that?
I think what's kind of fun about this is that the character is kind of like us. Usually you play like a Final Fantasy game, or generally like any sort of Square Enix game, and it feels like you're in this crazy world and just telling you like all this stuff is normal, and you're like, wait a second. I'm seeing these things that are definitely not normal. Like, why are there giant magical beasts and whatnot? And in this one, we have a character that is us and going like, wait, all this is too crazy. And
that right there, real quick.
Oh yeah,
the character animation, the facial animation, and the facial expression. This is what I was talking about with the Uncanny Valley. They've pushed it too far in the realism with no stylization, no like clear stylization for me at least. To the point where since the vocalizations and the facial animation is a little stiff and they don't quite line up right, it just feels off.
Yeah.
It looks awesome.
I think what is happening is that the facial modeling is now up to next gen, standards, like highly detailed.
That looks good.
But the facial animations still look like they're using older rigs, and so it's not capturing all the nuance of a facial motion. And I think that might be why there's kind of like doesn't look quite right.
Or
go ahead.
They might have been also using like the in-game models for that, which aren't necessarily rigged, because the close-up of the woman sitting in the chair there who did when her mouth moved, that was very good. And that could have been more of a cutscene model that had been specifically rigged for that animation. I mean, there was no eyes, right? It was a mask in the mouth. It's like you focus everything there.
Real quick thing about Forspoken too is that I think Sony actually has spent money and it's working pretty closely with Square Enix. That it does seem like it's some sort of limited exclusivity possibly of this game. It doesn't mention one way or another, but one of the early trailers made it appear as if it was a PS5 exclusive, or at least limited exclusive. So
I wouldn't be. It's a third party though. I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually makes its way to.
As things do, but I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake has not yet, and there's a reason for it because Sony has dumped money on Square for that.
Yep.
I also say something about this Rainbow Six Extraction. I think it's called Extraction. Yeah. This was supposed to be released earlier, but it was this is pre-COVID, and it was basically a viral outbreak. And they're like, oh, we can't do that anymore. And they had to go back to the drawing board and sort of redevelop the title, not as like a plague scenario, but as something like an alien invasion, alien infection sort of thing instead.
That makes sense. This is, I was kind of curious where this came from. It felt a little bit out of left field.
Yeah, it's been known about for like 2 years now, and everybody's like, where is it? And they had to go. I feel bad for the team because they had to go back and sort of redevelop the title.
Yeah, all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into all the development of the story and everything.
Yeah.
I had not realized that Rainbow Six had that much, like the Rainbow Six IP had that much flexibility where they could go into like alien territory.
I think at this point it doesn't matter. No longer is it part about it has anything to do with the writing. And now it's just like, we own the title. So
that one did say an Ubisoft original. Like there was that language as part of it.
Yeah. And here's the long rumored Alan Wake
Yep.
remake.
Oh, spoiler.
Did you play this game on the Xbox 360?
I never did. It was a period of time where I was living in Japan and I actually didn't have my 360 with me. I had a PS3 at the time.
Oh yeah. It was a pretty cool game. As Remedy does, they tend to have some pretty interesting systems, and in this case, it was a pretty radical lighting system. Because the whole game is you have to stay out of the dark because that's where the monsters are, and they come after you. It's cool to see it back. They say remastered. I think it's remastered because it's definitely not remade because the old systems still look like they're in place and they look pretty dated at this point.
Yeah, I mean, even just the hat that we just saw right there with looks like a law enforcement or something, or ranger, was clearly low poly, right?
Yeah, and like muddy textures. There's a lot of that in this. It is nice to see that it's getting a second wind on current gen. It's not good. Don't expect current gen graphics. This is Ghostwire Tokyo. Interesting thing about this, it's Bethesda published, which is now an arm of Microsoft. So
World rests on the precipice.
Probably an old contract.
yeah, exactly. I mean, this goes to show that there's Sony was working with Bethesda prior to the purchase of Microsoft. So they're honoring this old contract. So this is one of the games that you'll see crossing over platforms, even though it's now a Microsoft first-party studio.
Yeah. It looks interesting. The gameplay there looks interesting. It's hard to say what's going on with the story, and they really only showed flashes of gameplay in that trailer. But
Yeah.
There's an odd mixture in that as well of like the characters that have boxy modeling, and then like really nice effects and environments.
Guardians of the Galaxy. You came
What do you think, Justin?
choice.
I mean, we kind of gave our take on this.
Yeah, I was hoping that my take would change, my thoughts would change from this trailer.
All suffer.
And
I'm willing to look past its odd parallels to the game or to the movies.
with you. Oh, I think. Yeah, I think.
I don't know. It seems like a more whimsical.
Osmo.
What am I trying to say?
Like-
The EA, the BioWare game.
yeah, the delivery of the lines don't really match up with the like they're just trying to put so much
It was like they were drinking funky juice.
what's it called?
Join the cult.
Let us investigate for you.
Always sketch.
Humor into the kid, particularly the character of Star-Lord, but there's something about his eyes that don't match the delivery of that, and it just makes it awkward.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit. I think, like
Sounds bad.
they're carrying a lot of the character development that they made in the movies that are not part of the comics, at least weren't originally, and making it part of this game. So yeah, it traipses a very weird line of a lot like the movie, but definitely not the movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, and some of the humor that's driven seems a little off.
Proven yourselves unworthy, and you must be destroyed.
But they did show the Nova Core, so Nova might be in this. That's cool. I'm still like interested in playing it. I'm just not sure if I'll ever be able to get past the similarities to the movie.
Yeah, like this looks exactly like Rocket from the movie.
Yeah. Well, minus the goatee.
Fair.
Yeah, responding to the comment, same voices but not likenesses, very odd. It's exactly. It's pretty weird. Here's another game that we saw teased, I don't know, a year ago with just like a teaser, and now we're actually seeing gameplay. The
The detailed showing of the gameplay here is actually surprisingly quite a lot for a game trailer, right? They're showing you different classes, somewhat just with all of the UI in place. You can kind of get a sense for abilities of the different classes and how they play differently. This is them doing a very good job of saying, like, hey, those of you who enjoy PvP style online games, what about this? You know, and like giving you this sense of what might be intriguing for you as a player. I know for me, I'm not usually a fan of this kind of thing, but the gameplay they hint at in that trailer is fascinating. The different roles that you can take on.
Yeah, the question is if it is PvP. And now the title is Blood Hunt, but it's a Vampire the Masquerade game as well. I should mention, but it's unclear that it may just be like a 4-player co-op online game, which we see so few of nowadays that it would be kind of nice to have that back.
Yep. And this is the game I was listening to at our Instagram preview thing, where we've seen this one, I think, on 2 or 3 other Sony kind of trailer drops.
I mean, they had a full state of play on Deathloop, because this is Sony partially funded development, or at least, like the marketing budget is going to be covered by Sony in some capacity, even though it is a Microsoft Studios game at this point. It's Bethesda published. It's Arcane Studios, which is under
Arcane,
and they're under Bethesda as well.
Yeah.
So there is some amount of exclusivity to PlayStation from this title, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, there are parts of this animation and the awkward, like, weird masked people that just evoke a heck of a lot of BioShock for me.
I mean, if you've played the other Arcane Studio games, there definitely is a lot of inspiration from BioShock. Like just sort of the telling of the world, like, in the not Deathloop. I'm blanking on the name of it. There are other games. But yeah, they sort of create the same sort of world where it's like takes place in a time period that everybody should recognize, but it's fantastic in the sense that things just aren't quite right. And this kind of seems the same way. It's like that 60s, 70s vibe, but taking place in some sort of fantastic world.
Yeah, and the whole loop thing kind of feels a bit like this is an FPS version of Majora's Mask.
Yeah. I mean, it should be interesting, especially if like the fast reloading with the SSD should make it so that the death loops that you're on may be really fun to play.
I think they're leaning into it looks like they're leaning a lot into the roguelike mechanic style.
Yeah, I mean, I think Arcane looked at it and said, hey, what if we made our games, but we made them or Dishonored. That's the name of the games. What if we made Dishonored, but it was a roguelike instead of like a action narrative game.
Right.
This is very weird. I don't know what this is supposed to be or what it will be.
Yeah, I was confused.
Radiohead and Epic working together to create some sort of like interactive album or something.
Definitely has a radio. I almost said Radio Lab. Radiohead, thanks. Radiohead sound to it.
I mean, it's Radiohead, so that's why.
Even in this trailer is, I guess, my point.
See?
Yep.
Yeah, it should be kind of weird. Yeah, it is a Radiohead track. So I guess they're doing maybe like sort of an interactive album. Either way, it should be interesting. I also find it interesting that Epic's kind of dabbled further into like this sort of interactive music thing that with the success that they've had with Fortnite, yeah, and doing the live performances. Yeah.
And their whole movie thing now, like music videos and that type of experience are kind of their bread and butter.
Yeah. for certain.
or what they're making their bread and butter. This looks very interesting to me.
Yeah, I was looking at it initially going like, oh, okay, this seems kind of, interesting, but looks very indie. And then they showed off the mechanics of it. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
this is a cool mechanic.
Yeah. It's almost like, Mario did a bit of this with the hats, actually in several iterations, I'm sure. And there's lots of games where you kind of become different animals or creatures in the world, but
Yeah.
I think in this, the level and the island the island and the maps are as much a character as the main character.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely.
Yeah.
What's kind of cool is it's locally developed so it's like a handful of other games where basically their grant money went to a small game development company that wanted to tell a story about their local region.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. New Caledonia's it's like a localized studio development team, probably with like French funding, as it's a French territory, I think, still. But it looks cool. I like the fact that you're getting like a story that's local to the people who are developing it.
Yeah. Certainly get a different perspective that way.
Yeah.